Well, good morning, everybody. It's Tom Christie back in the painting studio, but actually it's the drawing studio this morning. I'm going to start a new project. I haven't posted in quite a while now because I've been working on some projects for Final Approach, the Decoy company, and those carvings will be seen next year when they hit production. So I can't show those right now. But that's been a fun project with Final Approach. Also been doing some palm frond entry for the Sacramento show that's coming up in the middle of July. And I did a video on the creation of my entry for that show, but I'll post that after the competition is over sometime later in July. In the meantime, I'm starting on a new project. This is going to be a Preening Blue-Winged Teal Drake. And it's a species that I haven't done before in my how-to carving videos, so I thought it might be interesting to do a series on the carving of this bird and some of the particular challenges of working in a preening position and trying to get the anatomy correct. I just thought it would be helpful to carve a preening bird again. I've done a preening hen mallard. If you haven't seen that, that might be helpful. There's a whole series on that bird. This will be a carving only series. And then I plan to put a full-length 50-minute video together on the painting of this blue-winged teal drake. And I'll have that available when it's ready for sale on my website at tomchristieart.com. Those take quite a bit of time and effort, and so I sell those videos as opposed to the free videos that I post on my YouTube channel here. If you haven't subscribed to my channel and you're getting value out of it, please consider hitting the subscribe button. I would really appreciate it. It helps me out. It doesn't cost anything to do that, but it does show support for me in the channel and the work that I'm putting into this for wildfowl and decoy carvers. So let's take a look at the blue-winged teal drake. I'm gonna, I've done a little bit of research online, which is kind of the way I start things, and looked at some different preening positions and trying to come up with something that inspires me. And this particular photo inspired me, and I think I'm going to show a little bit of exposed wing just to bring those beautiful colors out that the blue-winged teal drake has. And I want that head down preening position, but I think I'm going to move this back and stretch the neck back somewhat and put his bill right back here in the center of all this beautiful color activity. I think it'll make a really interesting version of a preening blue-winged teal drake. That's the plan anyway, so welcome back, and let's get started on some of the, I want to go through how I develop a pattern for a preening position. It's a little bit different than just a kind of a straight ahead position, because there's different geometry going on as the head turns, the neck pulls back, the breast is involved, and there are different shapes there. So let's talk about those things. Well, most of you that follow my channel know I'm a big fan of Pat Godden. Pat is an 18-time world champion, which is incredible, and he's also a good person and has become a good friend over the many years of competing together and seeing each other at shows. And so the way I start on considering a preening position is I go to Pat's pattern book for blue-winged teal drake and just get some reference dimensions, like the length of the bill from the cheek to the tip of the bill, the length of the bird itself, the width of the head. And I've written those down here. So the bill I know is 1 11/16 inches long. It's 3/4 inches wide. The body length is 9 3/4. body width 4.5, head width 1.75 inches. And he's also provided a folded wing position here, which in a preening position is very helpful to know the length of the folded wing, and that's 7.25. So those are reference dimensions that are very hard to get unless you have a pattern book or access to some reference dimensions. You may not be able to get a Pat Godden pattern book, but I just want to give a little pitch for his website at goddenart.com. He sells individual patterns, so you can get those kind of reference dimensions by buying a single pattern from Pat. Very reasonable. You may have other sources for those type of reference dimensions, but I just wanted to hit on that because I get a lot of questions about how do you know how long things are, how big things are on the live bird. And Pat just did a tremendous amount of work in his pattern books in aviaries to get those reference dimensions for the rest of us. And I appreciate the work that he's done, and you can trust those dimensions. Now I'm going to use those dimensions, and let's talk about making a pattern for a preening bird. It's relatively easy to get a good side profile on a bird in a head up position that the head is on the same center line as the body, and you can get a good clean pattern on that. On a preening position, it's much more difficult because there are so many angles going on. You can't get a clean profile on the bird. If you're lucky, you might see a head profile that you can get a clean pattern from, and then try to find a different position for the body. But it's going to be very rare that you'll find a picture that you can just blow up and give you a good pattern in a preening position. And that's why these reference dimensions are so important, because we're going to have to do some hand sketching, but knowing the size of things helps as we do those hand sketches to keep things in proportion. And these are enough dimensions that I'm going to use these as we develop this pattern to know that I've got the right sizes on things, if that makes sense. Okay, I found a nice clean profile shot online of a Drake blue-winged teal. This, you can see, is kind of this is the breast, so this was in a forward facing position. And I want to convert that to kind of this head down, almost vertically down preening position. So it's going to be more in this configuration. And I can extend the neck down in that vertical position. But I've used my reference dimensions from Pat's pattern to make sure the bill is the correct size and get this head profile sized correctly. Now I want to work on projecting these across and getting a top-down profile on this head. We know the correct head width is 1 3/4. So I'm going to tape this on kind of in this vertical position, and then give myself some guidelines across here, and then we can do some sketching of the head position. I'll go ahead and sketch in my guidelines. You don't have to watch me do that, and then I'll be back. I actually made some modifications after I got this side profile done. I drew lines across, and I had to get it in this orientation to line up with the front view. It's a little bit of a mind bender because of this offset neck. So in the front view, I needed to get this in the proper orientation, get the bill drawn in there, and identify where this material needs to be out to the side. Same from the top down view. I can't cut out this profile and lose all this material that eventually forms the offset neck. So the patterns are unusual in this preening position, but those are important. As I cut the top down profile, I've got to leave this material here. As I cut this front profile view, I've got to leave this material here corresponding to this. This, in this position, then on the decoy, if I can get it untaped, we're back to this down orientation. So I need to now design the body to line up with that neck junction point. We'll do that next. All right, I've got some side and top profiles sketched out. And you know, this is where we can begin to position the patterns on the decoy and get a feel for some of the angles we might choose to use. And I'm going to leave plenty of wood on the neck here, because when it gets down to the carving, we may want to change the angle, and I want to make sure I have plenty of wood down here so we can cut it off at an angle that is going to work with the carving. So I'm going to make the patterns of all of these, and then we can cut out the decoy. All right, we've got the patterns made, and now we can head out to the carving shop. All right, I used my patterns. I picked out a nice light piece of Tupelo and got it squared up, and then put my patterns on, traced top-down view, side view. Same thing on the head. I sized a block, squared everything up. The side view on here, top view here, front view there. And now I'll bandsaw those out carefully, and then we'll come back and start carving. Just a quick bandsawing note. I could not bandsaw all three positions. So the first cut I made was from the front. Then I put the pieces back together and cut out the side profile. But there are too many pieces at this point to try to tack everything back together and do a top-down cut. So if I remove all the pieces, we've got this kind of funky looking shape, but we've got the front profile established and the side profile established. And now I just need to use the pattern and reference and begin removing wood, and I'll carve the top down profile, including the bill width. Okay, I've got the pieces cut out, including this funky looking head, and I've laid the bill dimensions in on the head so that we can start carving using the calipers to get a measurement from the tip of the bill to the cheek, laying that in on the carving here. And normally I use a coping saw to cut that out, but for obvious reasons I won't be able to do that, so we'll grind that material out and begin to form the bill and then the shape of the head as well. So start working on that. I did want to mention something very special. Cooney Lafort, who's a good friend of mine in Louisiana, just recently sent me this knife of tan Bernays, and what a special gift. It's from 1991. He called it the Cadet, and he put the New Orleans show on the opposite side. It's a little dull because it hasn't been used in a while, but the other thing I wanted to do is use my dad's sharpening stone, which I haven't opened up in a long time. This is Craftsman Sears and Roebuck, probably from the, I don't know how old it is, 50s maybe. And I'm gonna spend some time sharpening Tan's knife, get it back to cutting well, and then I'm gonna use this knife while I carve this decoy. And for me, that is an incredible treat that I even have this knife, let alone be able to use it. And that is a big part of the joy of decoy carving to me, is the tradition. Tan was an amazing 5-time world champion. He's no longer with us, but he's right here with me as I work on this decoy. Thank you, Tan. I am by no means a proficient at knife sharpening and won't pretend to be, but I have sharpened knives. I do a lot of grinding these days, so I don't use as many knives. So I'm looking forward to doing more knife work on this decoy. That feels pretty good. I'm going to start with this cylindrical burr, about 1/4 inch, and remove material from both sides of the bill and back to that guideline that we put on, so I know that's where the bill meets the cheek. So I'm going to do this very carefully. There's a lot of different wood grain going on in a preening position, so you just need to work slowly, especially with a burr like this that has a tendency to snag. I work very slowly, so I'm running this at live speed rather than speeding it up right now. I just want to show just taking my time, removing a little bit at a time, but the burr does remove a lot more than say a ruby bit. So I'm going to work on that. I will speed this up as we move along, but I just wanted to issue that caution when working with burrs. So I'm going for that guideline on both sides, and let's speed this up. Got to be careful at the tip of the bill that we don't snag that end grain. Now we'll flip over to the other side. Same process here, just removing wood back to that guideline. You can see I'm going against the grain in this direction, so even need to be slower. Especially as you get to the tip of that bill where the end grain is, these burrs can snag and roll around. So I'm flipping it over to do the rounded end. Most of you that carve a lot know these things, but for beginners, I think it's important to mention. Okay, now we've got the width, and I want to start taking material off the cheek there to blend that in and angle it back to the widest part of the cheek. So narrow at the front where it meets the bill and angle back towards the widest part of the head, which is at the cheeks down below. This is back to normal speed, by the way, just for your information. Just carefully removing, and we're going to start forming this hourglass shape. I actually got the crown width established when we bandsawed that front profile. Normally I would have to grind that down to that width, but we were able to cut that out and save some time. Just another note, making this head and neck out of one piece of wood actually creates some additional challenges. There are a lot of interferences and close tolerances there. You can see that area under the neck that we're going to have to remove. So you may want to consider 2 pieces of wood, one for the head, one for the neck. That's perfectly fine approach. I just wanted to show how I would go about making that head and neck out of 1 piece of wood. So it does slow us down a bit. Now I'm going to use the knife and begin rounding the back of the head carefully. And just using the knife to remove wood. It's really nice. It doesn't generate as much dust, and something about using a knife is very satisfying. Obviously, you just have to be very careful with a sharp carving knife. So I'm going to use the knife and begin to take wood off just to save some grinding. I'm hesitant to speed any knife work up because I think it's important to see the speed here. And obviously we can't play around using a knife. You know, maintaining a good solid grip on the piece of wood is critical because it slips, from my experience, that create injuries. And I have cut myself a few times, and normally it's because of a slip. All right, you don't need to watch all of this, but just removing wood with the knife here, kind of shaping things up. And there's that odd section of the neck. We're gonna have to remove and cup out material from that area, and I'll probably do that with a grinder. I did remove material from that area with this cylindrical burr, that 1/4-inch burr, and now I'm back to the knife and just taking off more material, starting to round the bill and shape it up, round the cheek area, the crown. I did take a little material, but I want to dig that down further. To get under there, I'm going to have to use a different bit. So I'm going to go with this cone-shaped bit, and this is a ruby bit. The thing I like about rubies is it takes longer to remove material, but they don't snag as much. They're more of a sanding bit, and I think safer than a burr. It just takes a little longer. Especially though in areas where the grain may be going in different directions and there's a possibility of a burr snagging, I pick either a ruby or a diamond bit. I use both kind of interchangeably, and you can buy different grits of the ruby and diamond bits. I think I normally use a medium bit. There you can see I've started to shape that area where the cheek pulls out away from the neck, and I want to form some cheek in that area and continue to remove material on that neck that's curling underneath. I'm going to speed this up since we're using a ruby bit here. This cone-shaped ruby bit lends itself to this type of sculpting work. I like having the pointed end. It's not sharp at the point, but kind of bullet shaped, and you can get into tight spots with it, like right here, and remove material. I want that neck to be, the head kind of pulled right up against the neck, and even put a little crease in there to convey that some softness. You can see I'm starting to throw a little bit of a shadow there on that cheek, and that's what I want to have. I'm going to come back later and remove more material from the eye channel area. Right now I'm going to leave it pretty shallow and just kind of generally shape this up. Going to work on the bill details, but we've got a little more carving to do before we go there. I'm going to use Tan's knife again and take off some more material and just kind of chip carve and remove material slowly. It's easy to take off too much material with a sharp knife, and so I'm just going at it a little bit at a time, shaving material off as opposed to taking big chunks. Especially as you get to this area where we're trying to create sculpture, really, and we need to go at it slowly so that we don't have mistakes and have to put wood back, which is difficult. All right, I think we'll call that a wrap on session 1 of carving a Preening Blue-Winged Teal Drake. Got things roughed out, body bandsawed, head kind of roughed. We'll keep working on the details of the head next and shape up the body. Till then, it's Tom Christie signing out. Good carving to you.